presentations, we are going to watch a video that Hannah, one of our mentors, has made that's aimed at, well, it's as if it's a live event, but it's aimed at children. I'll talk a bit about that in a minute. Then Nay is going to share a little bit about some stuff she's done in her community around Easter time. Then we are going to get into breakout rooms just to think about those first two presentations and any questions that came up from it. So as you're watching the video and as you're listening to Nay, do be jotting down questions that you have or thoughts you have around how they've created the opportunities they have. Then Anne Brown is going to share a live presentation around a piece of artwork and how she uses visual art in evangelistic ways. And then we're going to play a video that I made last Easter and shared with some of my friends and colleagues last Easter. So all of us are just sort of having a go. And so these aren't sort of polished pieces, but they're just sort of from the heart what we do and how we've done it. Hopefully helpful to you as you begin to think about what you're putting together as part of the Greenhouse project. So we'll then go into breakout groups again after all the presentations, and then we'll come back as a whole group and just ask questions and can ask questions to any of the contributors, and just to share between us some of the wisdom that we have in this call. So is that all clear and helpful? What I'll do then is Nay is going to share Hannah's video so Hannah, give us a wave. Hannah's a Brit living in Germany. She runs a blog called Disorganized Sunday School, does as a volunteer, as a kids worker, and this talk that we're about to see is would be a live event, not on video if she was doing it in person. Think age 5 to 11 kids plus their carers. That's an event with an Easter egg hunt or a craft event, something Easter themed. So sit back and enjoy, make notes, and then think about what questions you'd like to ask Hannah afterwards. So Nay, over to you.
Anna, tell me if you can't hear it, okay? I'll just press play now.
Do.
A giant elf. Isn't the Easter Bunny, well, funny? The Easter Bunny is a giant hare or rabbit that goes around giving out chocolate eggs at Easter time. This is kind of strange. I mean, bunnies don't even lay eggs. But I do like the story. Not only because I get Easter eggs, but because it reminds me of 3 important things about Easter. The first one is that Jesus is our rescuer. Now, everybody knows that rescue is great. Being rescued is great. But it means that you're already in some kind of trouble. And we really are. We've all done bad things or thought bad things. We've been mean to someone who really needed a friend, or we've told a lie so that we don't get into trouble. We've just been really impatient and gotten angry, even though that doesn't make anything better. All of these things, we can't take them back. Even if we say sorry, there are consequences for our actions. And one of the consequences is that we deserve to be punished. And God says that the way we treat people, and especially the way we treated him, the only real punishment is death. This really doesn't sound like good news so far, but we won't really appreciate our rescuer unless we know what kind of trouble we're in. But there is good news. Even though God hates to see us hurting each other, he decided not to come and punish us, but instead to come and rescue us. God became a man called Jesus, a man who lived a perfect life, never did anything wrong. And instead of punishing us for the things we've done wrong, Jesus was punished in our place. He died so that we wouldn't have to. And he rescued us by dying for us. We can remember this at Easter whenever we eat chocolate. Did you know chocolate is made up of cocoa, which is very bitter, and sugar, that is sweet. And Hearing the news that we are bad people and that we deserve to die is a bit like eating cocoa powder on its own. It's not very nice. But the news that Jesus has come to rescue us is like adding sugar and milk and the rest of the things you need for chocolate to the cocoa powder. Even though the bitter stuff is still there, the sweetness of the rescue makes it all better. And so every bit of chocolate you eat can remind you that Jesus is our rescuer. The second piece of good news is that Jesus shows us new life. I've already said that Jesus lived a perfect life. He was never mean, never impatient, he never told a lie, he never did anything wrong. And much better than that, he did loads of good stuff as well. He taught people how to get to know God, he made sick people better, and he even brought dead people back to life. Jesus lived his life absolutely perfectly, in a way none of us could ever manage. He showed us exactly how God wanted us to live our lives. But even more incredible than that is what happened after Jesus died. When Jesus' friends went back a couple of days later to the tomb that he'd been buried in, they found it empty. His body wasn't there anymore. Then they saw Jesus and they spoke to him and they had breakfast with him and hung out with him for a whole month afterwards. It's incredible. Jesus is so strong and powerful that death just kind of fell apart and he came back to life. And this new life that Jesus has is different to the one he had before, to the lives we have, because he never died again. Now we can remember this whenever we see an egg, whether it's real or chocolate. Nothing about an egg looks alive. It has more in common with a stone than a person. But in the same way that some eggs, real eggs, have chicks inside them, and that baby bird will have to break its way out of the egg, that reminds us that Jesus broke the power of death and he came back to life again. When we eat our Easter eggs, they remind us that Jesus shows us what new life is like, a life that is perfectly good and is stronger than death. The third great thing is that Jesus gives us new life. Just like Jesus' body died and then came back to life, we can also have new life. Our bodies will probably get old and wear out one day, but even after we die, we can have new life with Jesus. But more than just living with Jesus after we die, Jesus promises that we can have a new life that starts now. This new life means having Jesus live in our hearts, having him help us to choose to love others when it would be easier to be mean or to tell the truth even though we might get into trouble, and even to enjoy waiting rather than getting angry. And all we need to do to be rescued and to have this new life is to ask Jesus for it. So I hope that whenever you see a picture of the Easter Bunny handing out Easter eggs, you'll remember that Jesus wants to give us something better than an Easter egg. Jesus wants to give us new life with him, and all we have to do is ask. That's just 3 amazing things about Easter. If you want to know any more about them or find out more about Easter, then you can ask me any questions you have or talk to someone else you know who's a Christian. Bye.
Thank you so much, Hannah. That is skills, isn't it? Eating chocolate, cocoa powder while speaking. I'm very impressed with that. Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm sure people have lots of questions, but save them up and we'll take them to Hannah. I just love the way that you weren't sort of down on all the stuff that the kids love about Easter, like chocolate, but you were like, this can remind us of what the real meaning of Easter is. I love that. Okie doke. Nay, I'm going to hand over to you now to present some of the stuff you've been doing in your community over Easter last year. I know that actually several people are thinking of doing similar types of things for the greenhouse this year. So I'll just hand over to you and you feel free to share what you'd like to.
Thanks, Anna. So my name's Nay. Actually, Anna, let me just check. How long do you want first before I go on for too long?
Take 5 or 10 minutes, something like that.
Okay, fine. Okay, everyone. So I'm Nay and I live in Southampton, married to John, and we've got 2 little girls, Anya and Agnes. And during COVID times, we decided as a family that we wanted to do something for our community that was COVID safe, but provided something really fun. And also we wanted to have an opportunity to share the good news of Jesus with our community. And so really by accident this happened, although I can now see God's hand in it. I prayed in the September, I think, of the first lockdown, God, how can I serve you and share my faith with my friends when we're stuck in our house? And I felt like God said to me, Nay, where do you think you shouldn't be? And I knew that Halloween was coming. I've never celebrated Halloween before. And I just had this sense, get involved with Halloween. So I guess you all know, Katerine, others, whether you have Halloween in North Macedonia. So I got some friends together and said, everyone loves Halloween in our area. Why don't we put on a trail? I was hoping they would organise it, but in the end, they voted for me to organise it. And being a Christian, I've never celebrated Halloween. And so I came home in a bit of trouble, really. And I said to my family, what are we going to do? And we talked and we all agreed that we would help organise this and we would be the House of Light. And so we set up a Facebook page and said to friends locally, would you like to be involved? And about 50 families got involved. We made a little map. Everyone decorated their houses for Halloween. We decided to go for light, and we had funny pumpkins. We gave out sweets, and I wrote a little booklet, a story, a very simple story, and the story pointed to Jesus. On that night, we gave away about 600 of these booklets and gift bags. And that was the start of our journey. And from that point onwards, we did many trails. Our latest one has been on Narnia at Christmas time. And just imagine like a simple map, houses, children go to each house and they see something. What we did last Easter was a bit different. We decided to, again, ask people who wanted to be involved. We had about 50 families again involved. We encouraged them to decorate their windows around Easter. So whether that was Easter eggs or flowers, it was up to them. And we had this trail map and people went around the houses and got involved. And I'm going to try and show you a couple of photos so you can see what we did. Here's on the left, here's one of the things we did. We had a box. We gave away these colouring kits that said it wasn't the nails that kept Jesus there, it was love. So we gave away colouring kits on the end of our driveway for children to take. Also, if you see here, we made these Easter craft packs. So inside them were Easter eggs. They had, on the right-hand side, you see some colouring in sheets. They could make a palm leaf. They could make an Easter basket. And you see it a bit more on the bottom left. They were put in a plastic bag with a wooden cross. And we gave those away on the end of our driveways. So there are about 5 families that got involved in this. And I think we gave away 600 or 700 packs to school children. And these are, we call them the Easter Story craft pack. It would take a couple of hours to do this craft over Easter, but it meant that 600 families were thinking about the Easter story, thinking about Jesus, and doing it as a craft means that people slow down, they colour in, they have to take time thinking about it. So we found that really effective for communicating. I don't know, I've got some more photos of the actual, no, this one doesn't have photos of the windows, But one thing I did as well for adults at Easter time is I wanted to do something for the children, but I wanted to communicate about God's love at Easter time. So if you see, I made a little card here called Love in Corona, and I printed it on a little square, and it's just a little story I wrote. It was particularly relevant to the pandemic. So I talked about what is love in Corona, and I gave examples of people that went to extreme lengths. So one man rowed across the ocean to his mother because he couldn't fly. Somebody else bought bread every day for an old man because he couldn't leave his house. So I talked about the love that we've seen in the pandemic, and then I linked it to Easter and the love we see in Jesus. And I wrapped up bottles and chocolates and gave them to my friends, as many as I could, over the Easter time. So I decided to use both writing and gifts as a way of communicating about Jesus. I'm just going to see if I can show you one photo and then I'll finish. This is my blog, where I try and write as much as I can on here. I don't know if it's got the photo. Sorry, Anna, I'm just faffing a bit. No, it's not that one. One more try. Oh. Try this one. If not, yeah, it's not going to come up, not to worry. So what I wanted to show you, but I haven't got a photo of, is as well as giving the craft gifts, the gifts for the adults, as people walked around our streets, our homes were decorated beautifully. So we had in big writing on our windows, do not be afraid, Jesus is risen. And then we also had this 6-foot angel that we hang from our windows. And so it was the angel's words speaking, do not be afraid. And other families decided to have Easter eggs. Some families had a Christian message, but it was a great way for the whole community to get involved and to impact the area. So that's what we did last year, and it took a lot of effort. This year, we still haven't made our plans, but I hope some of that is inspiring for what you could do. Thanks, Anna.
That's great. Thanks, Nate. Yeah, I love the whole concept. I've never thought about that, about craft, that it slows down people's interaction with the message, really. That's really, really great. I'm sure people have got loads of questions, both for Hannah and Nay, about that. So what we're going to do is just for 5 minutes, go into breakout rooms. And in your groups, if you could just very, very quickly introduce yourself, but not for too long, but mostly just say, what are the questions that you have that you'd want to ask Hannah and Nay? Maybe come up with a question for each contributor so far, and then someone agreed to write it into the chat when you come back into the room. So we've got a list of questions that we'll go through at the very end. So 5 minutes in groups, and then we'll come back together for the next 2 presentations. Great, thank you, everyone. If someone has taken note of the questions, just jot them into the chat now. Perhaps one for Hannah and one for Nay, and then I can start collating them ready for when we open it up to the panel, if that's okay. So just be popping those into the chat. Nay, you found that picture. Did you want to show us it before?
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for waiting patiently. So if you have this, just shows you what we got up to. You can see all the Easter story craft packs that we made. I had a huge team of people helping out. In the middle is our publicity for this Easter window hunt. This is the kind of thing that absolutely anyone can get involved with, whether you're Christian or not. It's really good to involve people. And then on the right is our window. You can see this giant angel, which actually we used for one of the Christmas trails. And then on the left, you see the words, "Do not be afraid." And so that was our front window that we had up for about a month around Easter time. So if you want to know more, I'll put a blog in the chat of how we did it. But I really recommend planning it for another year. It's a really good thing to do if you're in a family area. So thanks, Hannah.
Great, thanks, Nay. Okay, do be popping questions into the chat as we go. I'm going to introduce Anne to you now, Anne Brown, who's based in Wales as well. Monmouthshire, I think I'm right in saying, Anne, I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
Wales is too good. And you're going to do a sort of live presentation for us in a minute, but before you do, I wonder if you just want to give us some context, because I know that the kind of evangelism you're talking about doing is perhaps something that people haven't thought of doing before. So just give us a little bit of introduction before you start.
Can you still see me? Because I've just put my screen up and I've got a bit confused here.
Yes, we can see you. Yeah.
Oh, right. So you can see me, so I can talk away.
Yes.
I don't know how I'm going to share my screen.
We can't see your screen though, Anne.
Right. So how do I do this?
Can you see anything at the moment from Zoom?
Hang on.
Can you see any of our faces?
Oh, I know. I've got to go on to you, haven't I? Here. Right.
Yeah, that's
I'm
it.
back. Okay. Yeah. Now, but the only thing is, sorry, can I put mine, it's not on slideshow, it's on the normal view for the PowerPoint.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, before you share your screen, just tell us a bit about what you're going to do, and then we'll help you share your screen. Okay,
well, what I'm going to do is focus on one painting. Mine is definitely for adults, not for children, so it's a bit of it's very different from the ones that have gone before. I was thinking, oh dear, hope this is going to be okay. Anyway, I'm focusing on one painting and trying to unpack some of the details in it, and hopefully through it, it leads to an appreciation of the wonder of the resurrection. And it's the sort of thing that I've done as part of talks with students in evangelistic lunch bars, all sorts of things, in churches, not just in churches, in art centres, all sorts of different settings. Not just one painting, it would be part of a whole talk. And actually what I prefer to do is, I find it very difficult, this sort of thing, because what I really like to do is ask questions and engage with people and ask you what you think. So if you're not used to looking at paintings, please bear with me, try and look carefully and give it a chance. Okay.
That's great, thanks, Anne. So do you want to share your screen now, and then you can start your presentation? And I'll just say as well, Anne's written a really great piece that she shared with me about using art in evangelism, which I'll share with everyone after this, if that's
and
useful.
Actually not just art. So if you photographs, anything that builds a bridge with people and helps them to connect and start to talk. Yeah, okay. Now, is that going to be?
So if you press share screen and then click on, yeah, that's it, that's done. Great, I'll hand over to you then, Anne.
Right, okay, good. Right, well, over the past few weeks, I'm sure you've all seen heartbreaking images of distressed, deeply traumatized people in the Ukraine. And the woman in the painting I'd like us to look at together is also deeply traumatized. 2 days previously, she'd witnessed harrowing scenes of suffering and a brutal death. And this is the painting I'd like us to look at. It's taken from the Queen's collection, and it shows us the way that Rembrandt imagined the first Easter morning. Half the painting's in shadow, and the dawn is just breaking over Jerusalem. You can see Jerusalem in the distance. Mary Magdalene is alone, and that's who the woman is. Her friends have left, and she's shocked and deeply distraught, having just discovered that Jesus' body is missing from the tomb. And then suddenly she becomes aware of someone standing behind her, and startled, she twists around. You can see from her body language the way her hand is raised in alarm. Who is he? She can hardly see the man in the half light and assumes he must be one of the gardeners. And Rembrandt very cleverly, really, indicates Mary's mistake by depicting Jesus wearing a gardener's hat, carrying a spade, and having a pruning knife at his waist. And broadcaster Melvyn Bragg comments that what makes the Gospels convincing is the density of detail. And he calls Mary's misidentification of Jesus a clinching detail, a really significant detail. Mary's expression is difficult to read. I think she looks bewildered, distressed. I don't know what you think. Perhaps you could say afterwards. But at the same time, as she turns into the light, maybe there's a glimmer of hope, a dawning awareness. Rembrandt really excels at painting these knife-edge moments of tension. She's suspended in the moment just before recognition. This couldn't be Jesus, could it? She'd seen him crucified. She was there watching the whole terrible spectacle as he was tortured and finally certified dead. She knows without a doubt that he died. Well, let's just leave that question hanging for a moment and take a closer look at Mary. If you notice what she's wearing, Rembrandt has cloaked her in scarlet. It was the conventional way for painters to indicate Mary's devotion to her saviour after she'd abandoned her apparently notorious past. Now, artists and filmmakers and novelists have exploited her supposed notoriety. It's not surprising because notoriety sells. But the Mary Magdalene they created is largely fictional. Half-truths and legends have been layered onto the first gospel accounts. And the woman in the Gospels has been overshadowed by the fictional Mary Magdalene. And sadly, in all the speculation about her sex life, we've lost sight often of the significance of Mary being the first witness to the resurrection. And the significance is absolutely enormous, because in the ancient world in which she lived, it was extremely patriarchal. In the first century, a woman's testimony in a court of law carried very little weight. And yet, women were chosen as the first witnesses to the empty tomb and to the risen Christ. It's truly astonishing. No first century man in his wildest imaginings would have invented a story in which a woman was first on the scene. And it's worth taking in that sentence. It just would have been outside of his thinking completely And the role of women as the first witnesses to the empty tomb and the resurrection points us to the reliability of the gospel account. Jesus' resurrection is a believable, historical event. Now, unsurprisingly, the male disciples, as first century men, didn't believe the women. Luke says their words seemed like nonsense. And others have rubbished the resurrection account. For example, Renan, writing in the 19th century in France, wrote that it was a hallucinating woman who gave the world a resurrected God. Now, of course, he ignores the other 11 recorded resurrection appearances to both men and women in different places and at different times of day, which really isn't the stuff of hallucinations at all. But let's go back to the painting. If you look at it carefully, it's actually quite difficult to see. But in the foreground is an incongruous addition. A path curves away from the tomb, and it's edged with box hedging. Now, that was very fashionable in 17th century Holland, but not in first century Jerusalem. And according to the curators of the 2015 exhibition in Edinburgh, they say that this path emphasizes the true message of the painting. Well, what does that mean? What is the message of the painting? Jesus himself said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Jesus is the way from the darkness of death to resurrection life. And Mary Magdalene is about to grasp that wonderful, mind-boggling hope. And I hope you can see the quote at the top there, because a poem is attached to the back of the painting. It was written by Rembrandt's friend, Dekker. And in it, he talks about Mary Magdalene hovering between joy and grief, fear and hope. Now, some of you may be in a position of weighing up whether this could possibly be true. And if you want to think more about whether the resurrection is actually fact or fiction, please pick one of these on the way out or one of the Gospels so you can think a bit more about it. Okay, I'll stop there. The ending wasn't very good. I mean, I just would take more time offering to talk to people, or hopefully there might be something else they could go on to. Something. Anyway.
Thank you so much, Anne. Thank you. If you could just stop your screen share.
Sure.
Brilliant. Thank you. Oh, there's so much in there. I've got so many questions for you already, but I will.
Oh dear.
I will I'll pause it there. We're just going to watch one more presentation, which is a video that I made last Easter. I used a poem that I really love and just made a very short video that I shared with friends and my work colleagues last Easter. So the context is basically, adults again, and using a poem to try and share the message of Easter, but still very much in the context of the pandemic as we were this time last year. So, Nay, if you're happy to share that, and then we'll start the questions.
Hello, I just wanted to share a poem for Easter. It's called Love by George Herbert. Love, baby. Hello, I just wanted to share a poem for Easter. It's called Love by George Herbert. Love bade me welcome, yet my soul drew back, guilty of dust and sin. But quick-eyed love, observing me grow slack from my first entrance in,
Can you hear that, Anna? Is it too quiet?
It's quiet, but I can hear it. Is anyone having problems?
Mine's a bit quiet, but
Yeah, let me just see if I can, sorry everyone, let me just try and make it slightly louder. Let me go again. Anna, just shout if you can't hear, okay?
Yeah.
Hello, I just wanted to share a poem for Easter. It's called Love by George Herbert. Love bade me welcome, yet my soul drew back, guilty of dust and sin. But quick-eyed love, observing me grow slack from my first entrance in, drew nearer to me, sweetly questioning if I lacked anything. A guest, I answered, worthy to be here. Love said, you shall be he. I, the unkind, the ungrateful, I cannot look on thee. Love took my hand and smiling did reply, who made the eyes but I? Truth, Lord, but I have marred them. Let my shame go where it doth deserve. And know you not, says the Lord, who bore the blame? My dear, then I will serve. You must sit down. There's no taste my meat. So I did sit and eat. I just love this. I think as we face our second Easter with COVID restrictions, it just warms my heart more than ever. I just love that sense of the poet really knowing who he is, the way he describes himself, his frailty and his fragility, guilty of dust and sin, he says. And that's absolutely been my experience of facing this pandemic, is that as I've felt the pressure of life, what's come out of me hasn't been what I wanted it to be. My frailty and my fragility and my unkindness has been exposed more than ever. And I was walking down the street the other day in Liverpool and I saw this big billboard and it said, "You have got this." And I was just thinking about that and I thought, I haven't actually. If I've learned anything this year, it's that I haven't got this. I haven't got any control. I haven't got any sense of being able to help myself, my anxiety, my worry, my frailty. But that's where the message of Easter is so different. That God, described in this poem as love, comes to us. So as he sees his frailty and his soul draws back, love draws nearer to him. Says, do you need anything? And the line, I guess, in the poem that I find most haunting is, let my shame go where it doth deserve. Because linked in with all this weakness and frailty and guilt is that feeling of shame. And at times I just don't know what to do with it. But the message of Easter is that God sent Jesus. And as the poet says, know you not who bore the blame? That as Jesus died, he took the shame, my shame, on himself. And then I guess as the poem ends, it sounds like we're going to be told to pull our socks up. Come on, God's done this for you, so pull your socks up. But it's the complete opposite. He says, just come in and join in the meal. Sit down, says love, and taste my meat. And that's the invitation this Easter, to know the one who bore the blame, and then just to go and sit and eat.
Starting an online store is
Great. Let's just, for 3 minutes, go back into our groups just to compile some questions, and then we'll spend the rest of our time together, probably 15 minutes or so, just questioning all the different panelists and different ways. So, Nay, if we could go into breakout rooms for 3 minutes, great. Great. If you're happy just to jot questions down as you come back, that's great. Thank you. And I'll choose some. Thanks, everyone. If you could just pop questions in the chat, and I'm going to just start going through them and calling on the panel members to answer them. There's some great questions come in, and I'll just take it in turn so we hear from each speaker again. So, Hannah, let's start with you. Who was your audience that you would have reached with that talk? So, are you imagining it's sort of Christian kids? Or would you, or no, I think it says, would you imagine the children would know a Christian already to talk about it?
Yeah, so that was sort of my first draft or dress rehearsal. So I'm planning to do something similar to that at Easter in a family service. So it would be some Christian families and kids, and then also invited friends. So in that place, yeah, everybody would probably have a Christian friend or family that they'd come with.
Yeah, so sort of connected to church in some way. Yeah, that's really helpful. I'm just going to keep firing these questions out, but if anyone wants to ask follow-up, just put your hand up using the button, and yeah, feel free to chip in new questions or type them into the chat. Nay, what resources, so time, finances, team, church support, did you have access to when you were creating your trail?
Well, no resources from my church. I mean, they were supportive, but this was right in the height of lockdown when you couldn't leave your street. So it was all the mums and families I knew from school, and I basically used Facebook. So I would set up an event and I'd say, who wants to be involved? Fill in this Google form, and then I'd set up a WhatsApp and we'd organise the trails through that. So I got to know loads and loads of people, but Facebook was the best thing, and that works because most of the people in our area, my age, are on Facebook. We have these like year group Facebooks for the parents of each year. I didn't know them all. I got to know a lot, but that was, yeah, that was this. I didn't have any support. It was me. I did find Christians that would pray for me and join me. There was nobody that was with me the entire time, like every single trail, but I did try and find Christians to support me. But most of the trails I've run have been non-Christians doing them, not Christians.
That's a really interesting concept, isn't it? Sort of running a community event with a mixed group, Christians and non-Christians. That creates, I guess, creates opportunities in and of itself, although it probably comes with quite a lot of pressure as well. So yeah, interesting. If you want any more questions on that, do put them in. Anne, how would you finish that talk if you were doing it in person? Well, there's two questions really. What kind of setting would you imagine giving that talk in? And would you then have taken questions after the talk?
Yeah, definitely take questions, always take questions. Yeah, and actually invite questions as I go through it about the painting. Yeah, I much prefer sort of dialogue. And what was the other one? What setting?
Where did you do it? Or where can you imagine doing it?
Well, that particular one I did as a video, more or less, not quite the same, last Easter, and sent it to some friends and family. But talks about Mary Magdalene, the whole long history of her and ways she's been represented in art and cinema, and how her story's been distorted, and then coming back to the biblical, which is quite a long thing. I've done it in an art centre, but I've done it in churches as part of sort of Passion for Life events. I've done it as not lunch bar, it's a bit long for a lunch bar, but I've done it in universities, a tea time event, having tea and sitting there and looking at the paintings and talking about it. Basically a huge variety of settings. There was one good question. Can I just take that one?
Take it. Yeah, absolutely.
Would you ever get people to bring their own art? Definitely. I mean, one of the sessions I enjoyed best was in Falmouth with, those were art students, but they put on an exhibition, and the Christians were very well connected with the non-Christian students. So they had an exhibition of all their work, like a proper exhibition, beautifully done, and with eats and everything else. And then I did, they knew there was going to be a talk at the end, because we'd been praying hard, because I thought, they're going to want to look at each other's work, not listen to me. But then I did something about Damien Hirst's piece of work, For the Love of God, which is a skull covered in diamonds. And we had a huge debate about it. I started off with something, when they showed it in the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, they did a vox pop about it. And I asked the art students the same questions and compared their results with those in Amsterdam. And then it leads into a whole thing about, you actually really do get to the gospel. But, that was sitting down on bean bags, lots of interaction, but following on from their own work of art. But equally, I've seen people do it with photographs of selfies. And, Jodie did this, Jodie Hines, in something in Scotland, and get people, what does this selfie say about you? And what do you want it to say about you? And, all the exploring identity through that, or photographs of all, I think, I could go on forever. I better stop.
Well, I think that's really helpful. I think that's really helpful, Anne, because I think lots of us think we're not into art, but we are all engaging with visual media all the time, aren't we? So that's really helpful. Thank you. I'll just take a question myself, which was, well, there's two that go together a bit. Where did you share it, and what sort of reactions did you get? I did put it on social media, but I'm only on Twitter. I'm not on any other, so that's not like that good for sharing with friends. So I put it in using WhatsApp. We just sent it to friends, either if there was in a group of friends, that was sort of somehow a bit easier to send it to a group. I sent it to some individuals as well, just said, and this is slightly cheating a bit, but I just found it a more natural way to do it, to say, I've been part of this project called The Greenhouse, which has been trying to put a video together. I've never made one before, so I'd love you just to see what you
Yeah,
think.
same.
And then in my small group in the greenhouse, everyone in the group said, well, why don't you share it with your work colleagues? Because I work for a reading charity, so the poem bit of it is quite connected. So I put it on our work weekly email and just said, look, I've been doing this in my personal capacity and love you to see it. And I got reactions there from people who I would never have talked about spiritual things because I'd never had that relationship with them before, and they emailed me back and said, shared things with me and blah, blah, blah. So that was really exciting, and to kind of put myself out there at work. And then I just had that classic thing where some friends just totally ignored it and acted like I hadn't sent it, which I think is just like quite normal as well, isn't it? And strange. So really mixed, but generally a really encouraging experience. Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Hannah, with a question. Sorry, my mouse is being strange, so I can't. Or Hannah, if you see one that you really want to answer, just unmute and take it. So there's a question there about how well are you holding kids' attention as you're doing it, but also how long does it take to prepare?
Yeah. So in terms of holding kids' attention, I think the plan would be to they would all have done an Easter egg hunt already and have their own Easter egg, which they could eat at the appropriate moments or that kind of thing. And potentially also as a thing I haven't decided yet, but maybe do it as 3 separate talks. So one for each point that was being made. And then you can get a little bit more into each talk, but also it's not as long for anybody to have to concentrate. So yeah, if there are small children around, or lots of younger children, that's probably a better option, but it's not something I've decided on yet.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Yeah, in terms of preparation, gonna see, just checking my WhatsApp to see when they asked about this, because I think it was like maybe 2 weeks ago. Does that sound right, Nay? And so yeah, I'd kind of been vaguely thinking along this line for maybe what I'd do for Easter, and then went to the shops and saw what was in the shops here, because you don't get big Easter eggs in Germany, which is sad. It's all and no hot cross buns either. And so kind of trying to think of what kind of things are around. So Easter bunnies, Lindt Easter bunny is very popular, and so then just kind of collecting ideas for probably about a week and a half, and then
that's really interesting. So a lot of the prep actually doesn't happen sitting down at a desk, but it's mulling through your mind as you're going to shops and wandering around and doing your normal life. That's really helpful. Okay, Nay, any thoughts about context? So sorry, I've lost the question. What's your context and how would you adapt this for a rural or an inner city setting?
Oh, that's a lovely question. Thank you. So, we live in Southampton, it's a city, but we're they call it a village within a city. So there's one school with 660 children, and everyone in the area goes to that school. Lots of families, lots of people who have lived here for 30 years and are now grannies and granddads. How can you adapt it? Great question. Lots of people have adapted these ideas of trails. Anne Brown has. I mean, for me, I would say if you've got an idea of when you want to do it, say Christmas, what you want to do is find some people that are keen to join you and be on your team. And it's through that you find talented people, Christians or non-Christians, who can make it work for your area. So Anne was involved in one where they put all these different bits of the Narnia, part of the story, whatever story it was it Nativity, Anne? Yeah, in a park. So they had all these different art stations in a park and people would go round. So you could choose a park rather than houses. It can work in windows rather than gardens. You could just do it on one road and then finish up. So there's lots of different ways it could be done, but personally, I think it's so much better when you've got a team of people that can imagine it together. And I don't know if you want to contribute, because you were involved in the one in the park, weren't you?
Well, that was just a little one that I did for my grandchildren because I thought it was such a brilliant idea. But they're doing it this coming week in the Passion for Life here in Monmouth, and then and in Crickhowell too. So that's being adapted to
So it's
two
really,
little towns.
really adaptable, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anne, can I just ask you an interesting question, which is that your interpretation of the painting, or does the interpretation already exist? Because I think that's quite important, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It basically does exist. If you look at the painting on the Queen's collection, you can see what they say about it. The quote about the true meaning being the path was from the curators of the Queen's exhibition up in Edinburgh, but actually they didn't use the Bible quote, the biblical quote about "I am the way, the truth, and the life." They put it very sort of art historically about Jesus being the gardener, from the earthly garden to the heavenly garden of paradise. So it wasn't exactly the same, but they pointed out that they thought that was very definitely the true message of the painting. But you're absolutely right. You've got to be very careful in interpretation about, checking out about whether what you're saying, you're not just seeing things because you want to see them.
Yeah, that's great. And I know Anne is really happy to be put in touch with anyone if you're interested in exploring that more. Obviously her specialism in this is brilliant. So please let me know and I can put you in touch with her. There was one more question which someone asked whether I used a script. I didn't. I bullet pointed. I just had like a few post-it notes with some bullets on because I wanted the feel of it to be quite natural and quite sort of spontaneous.
Yeah.
So I had planned what I was going to say, but I didn't do it from a script. And actually, hearing it back, I think, I wouldn't quite say that like that now. But that was kind of the feel I was going for. If I was doing a talk in person in a setting, I would always use a full script. So it's just a different kind of genre, I think. Okay, I'm really keen that we finish on time. So what I'd love us all to do before we finish is just pop into the chat what you're planning to do this Easter. I know obviously Carol has given her talk tonight already. I know others of you have got it before you meet again as a small group, but it'd be great just so we get a real sense of what as a group we're planning to do and what we might be able to achieve together to get the message of Easter out. So just pop that into the chat. I just think it'd be really encouraging. And then I will pray for us and then we'll close. So I'll just give you a minute. This is brilliant. I'm loving reading these. Such variety in what people are planning to do, from trails, videos, blog posts, Easter breakfast, a written poem based on the gospel narrative, a short talk to toddlers. Good luck. No, that's great. I love that. Yes, I had been planning a blog post for after tonight, my print cards with a small gift. Yeah, that's really feels doable, doesn't it, and achievable, something that we could just do on our streets. Writing a text to share with students for encouraging them to share the gospel, brilliant. that's really encouraging, and I just want to encourage you to go for it and to enjoy it and to feel very sort of empowered to do it. I loved, I think Anne, you shared about those first women that were the witnesses to the resurrection and the impact that they've had, and we've been talking about them a lot, haven't we, on this project, through what Hannah shared at the very beginning in the training video. And Angela's doing a short talk to ladies on the fringes of church, so inviting them to get together, a podcast audio. That's fabulous. I'm just going to pray for us, and then we'll call it a night. So let me pray. Heavenly Father, we just think of what it was like that day when Mary Magdalene saw Jesus. Just that sense of her joy, hovering between joy and grief and fear and hope, and just sort of being suspended in that moment. And yet what joy the resurrection has brought us, what hope it brings us even in these dark and troubled times. And I just want to pray for all these different women who are stepping out this Easter in sharing something evangelistic in their context, whether that's in trails or blog posts, talks, videos, poems, all the different opportunities that you're helping them to create. And Lord, I just want to pray that as your gospel goes out, you would be working in people's lives to bring the wonder of the resurrection into their hearts. And we just think of those we know who are particularly facing fear and grief at the moment, and we pray that you'd give us an opportunity to bring the joy and the hope of the resurrection to them. Thank you for Hannah and the opportunity you've given her to speak particularly in a skilled way to children. Thank you for Nay and her creativity in her neighbourhood, and for Anne and the way that you bring her specialism and expertise in art to glorify the message of Jesus. And I just want to pray that you would really help us all this Easter to hold out the word of life with great confidence and boldness. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I do just want to say thank you so much to Anne and Hannah and Nay for sharing and for taking questions. Let's do a little emoji clap. There you go. It's really appreciated, and you've all just inspired us in such different ways, and I think that's just the joy of this project, is that we're all having a go in the context we're in. So next week you should be meeting in your small groups again, just to share your drafts and to get feedback and to help sort of help you in that. If you need any help one-to-one, do contact your mentor. And Nay, do you want to say anything about if people are sharing things on social media, which I know isn't everyone, but it might be helpful for us in PFE to link to people?
Yeah, thank you. Can I get a quick photo of everyone? If you don't want your face taken, switch your camera off now, but please do. Let me just take a photo first. Okay, great. Sorry, Katerina, can we have you, please? You're beautiful. Great, got you. Okay, we would love to celebrate you and support you in what you're creating. And we are so excited by this project that we'd like to share wider what you're doing. So if possible, please would you share it on social media. So say if you're doing a talk and you hadn't thought about putting it on social media, you could also video it and just pop it on. Or say if you're writing something or doing a podcast, you could also put that on social media. Please be brave, because you never know who's listening. And if you do that, please would you tag me in, so Naomi Dawson or PFE, and we'll then share it. And the more we share it, the more people hear. And really, this is like the farmer sowing seeds. So please tag us in, and I'll try and tag everyone else in. But it's really exciting, you know, and I'm sure one day we'll meet people who first heard about Jesus through what you're sharing. So yeah, I'd love you to remember that, and don't think I'm not good enough. Don't think only some people can do this. This project is for everyone here. So yeah, please do that before. Thanks, Hannah.
Great, thanks, Nay. So there's your call to arms. After this meeting's finished, I'm going to send you 2 things. One is Anne's piece about sharing visual art, and the other one is an article by a former greenhouse participant called Lois, who has put together a brilliant resource around how you can create your own opportunities where you are. So I'll send them on afterwards. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming and for having such an encouraging evening, and we'll look forward to seeing and hearing how it all goes. So thanks everyone. Bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Thank you.